This is the second in a two-part series on esoteric practices, this one being on the ethics of psychic readings. Readers can charge quite a bit of money when they don't have to pay back any university fees. They're old cards, they only have to replace every few years, or old runes, and they often read from their home or somewhere simple to get to. So you readers should really not charge too much. On the other side of things, reading does drain energy of a lot of readers. It's in close proximity with a lot of counselling going on, and so it's often not something that can be done, all day 9 to 5. So that has to be kept in mind. But if you go looking for a reading, there's different prices for different readers, and I actually find in my experience that readers that charge the less are often the best ones. Something readers need to be careful of is that everyone makes mistakes, and although sometimes readers get it right 100%, sometimes they don't understand what to say. The cards don't tell them enough. They're not getting enough messages. The right message comes to them. They just don't know what to say. That's when a reader should acknowledge that they're not getting everything. And some readers do, some readers don't. Also, sometimes a reader will pass on some information about what's going to happen in the future, and I realise that they're actually talking about something that's happened in the past. Sometimes they only get a partial picture. Sometimes they're talking about something I want to happen rather than will happen. Sometimes they get a situation right, but it's to do with other people, kind of thing. They often just get pictures or words and they interpret it right, sometimes interpret it wrong. So we need to keep that in mind as clients and readers. The past, the present and the future, these are all different things. And although I have some philosopher colleagues who argue that it's all the one thing, as far as readings goes, my experience is that, and I know many others experience, that when readers talk about what's happening in your life and people around you, situations you've been in, what you're going through, they're really accurate. But when they talk about the future, the accuracy is sometimes right, sometimes wrong. And yeah, that's just something to bear in mind. The funny thing is, most people go to reading, they want to know about their future, but the funny thing is, the thing that's most helpful that readers tell them is about now and their relationships. And readers know this unconsciously, so they tell them more about the future. But it's something that should be focused on more, what's happening in our own life and our relationships with others and what we can learn. In terms of future forecasts, when it is right, however, what I find is often wrong, even when the forecast is right, is timing. So readers will say, like, this will happen in this amount of weeks or months or a couple of years or days, and I find it's almost always wrong. And that's something readers really need to be careful of. They keep doing it because they know the clients want to hear that. They might not get enough feedback about it, but you readers really need to rein that in and be a lot more simple with it. Say simply short term or long term. Maybe days, weeks, months, but not specific days, weeks, because you're usually wrong unless you're 100% sure about it. It may just be a guideline, but those guidelines are often way wrong. Sometimes they'll get an event like Christmas or something, that's fair enough to say that something will happen along that, but just something to be more careful about with timing, because it does create expectation and mislead people. Sometimes readers will just use a few cards and that doesn't give enough information. So I've got a reader that's probably the best reader I know. She says a lot of helpful things, insights. She's a medium as well. She says many accurate things that I don't tell her anything about. She just gets. But I've come to realise that when she tells me a reading, and she tells me something I'm not sure about, I need to ask her to do some more cards on a particular point. And sometimes she'll do, okay, pull out some more cards about a point, and it'll say something quite different about that matter. So often you need to get, when there's something you're not sure about, a question within a question, you just ask something more, and the reader should be prepared to put more cards out. On the other side of things, I find a lot of inexperienced readers, or particularly men who are a bit too sure of themselves and are not psychics and are just tarot readers, they'll do what's known as the Celtic cross, which is cards below and above the past, present, future, and outcome. And then they'll do that, and they'll put another card out for each position, and another card, a third card out for each position. And by the time they've done that, they've used most of the cards in the deck. So most of their readings have most of the cards come out, and they struggle to give full understanding of what each of those cards mean for that person. Really, readings should be more simple, not too limited cards, but enough information to be helpful. I was mentioning how readers, they sometimes get things a little bit wrong. They might only see one side of things and pass that on. That one side of things can be helpful, but sometimes they will say, well, that's the case, and it will be the case, but it's only one side of the picture. For instance, you might ask, am I going to meet someone, or is this job going to happen? And they'll say, yes, it will, but it might only last 2 days, or something like that. And when readers do get something wrong, and some readers, I'll tell them that, and they'll be quite unethical in a way where they're not even being honest to themselves as well as to the client. And they'll say, oh, that you just used your free will to change the situation. But actually, often the client has the same intention as they did in the reading. So the free will didn't change. Maybe the free will of the other people in the reading changed, but for the reader, it didn't change, and the reader, it didn't change. But for the reader, they should have really picked up that that person was going to go in a certain direction and not the one they said they would, and not try to tell the client, oh, you should have got yourself together. It's not up to me to tell you how to live your life. If they're going to make a prediction and it turns out not the way, they simply got it wrong, and they should not blame the other person's free will. And that reader should work on why that might not have been the case and what needed to have been explored. Yeah. And there are readers that do that and readers that don't. Some readers quite charge too much. I think I've mentioned that. And the better readers don't charge too much. And just readers need to be humble about their limitations at times. Some readers, they're better at knowing the meaning of each card. Some have a greater sense of intuition. They get messages where from spirits or guides, or just from their own ability somehow, or somewhere, the universe. They're better at passing on those messages. Others combine them both. Others say they speak to past over relatives. How that happens, I don't know, but they're pretty accurate with me. And of all these things, as I mentioned in the previous video on whether tarot and astrology can be compatible in philosophy and science, it's really something that you need to go out and find for yourself. If you haven't seen a medium, go out and see one. Don't tell them too much about yourself, just see if they can pick up things or not. As a client seeing a reader, we need to realise we are social beings, and whereas we want to know all these things about how we're going to get rich, how are we going to get our lives together, are we going to meet, is someone we like going to be with us, how can we make that happen? We've got to be careful of selfishness, because if you believe in spirits and energy and what goes around comes around, whatever nature of the way things are in the universe with readings, you'll know that at the very center of it is karma, and that when we think about others' well-being, things work out better for us. And that's the same when we're asking questions of readers. We need to consider others' well-being in the situation and not be selfish. This is why we can't just simply ask for the lotto numbers from readers, because we're getting some money and other people aren't. We're finding out, getting all this money to ourselves. Otherwise, why can't we just walk into a reading and the reader tells us the exact answers of what we should do in our lives? You know, life isn't that simple. and readers can tell what comes through to them from spirit. And if we're selfish, it can't tell us, the energy will be negative coming through to us. Maybe even there's mischievous energy that the psychic is connecting to, that's passing to us, that wants to mislead us when we're being selfish. So always keep in mind other people's well-being in any question. Well, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for watching.